Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. I thought it would be cool to talk about me being first generation and the perks, the challenges, the exciting things, all of that. This was just, it randomly popped in my head. So yeah, if you don't already know, my name is Samya and I'm first generation Indian American. So what does that mean? Because I feel like now there's so many definitions for first generation. So my parents are not originally from the States. They were not born here. They were not raised here. They are originally from India. Well, my dad was born in England, but you get the gist. And so yeah, and then they moved over here in their like late 20s, and then I was born. Well, first, let's just talk about sleepovers. Who all here were allowed to go to sleepovers? Give me a thumbs up in the comments if you were, or a thumbs down if you weren't. Now this one was interesting. I was allowed to go to sleepovers, but it was like a big deal, which might sound crazy to a lot of you, but I think it's because in our culture, like it's almost like why would you send your child to sleep somewhere when you have a bed at home? Having your child sleep over somewhere is almost like a diss, or it's almost like yours telling the world that you can't provide for them as well as safety. I don't know, it's like this whole thing. But yeah, sleepovers I think culturally wasn't common for a lot of Indians, but my dad was super cool and he always let me go to sleepovers and have people sleep over. But I remember it always being like a big topic with like my other Indian friends. Food, oh my god, can we talk about food? Okay, first of all, this needs its own video because your girl just does not understand why flavor is considered spicy. That's something I've never understood. When people call Indian food spicy, are they saying spicy as another word for it's flavorful, like it tastes like something other than salt? Or do they mean like heat spice? So that's something I never really understood, because I always heard that Indian food was spicy, but in our household, if you've ever come to my house or ever had my mom's food, it's not hot. It's not heat spice. It's flavorful. And the cool thing about Indian food is it doesn't depend on fat, salt, and sugar for flavor. It depends on herbs and spices and the actual method of cooking for flavor. So that's something I appreciate a lot. Ladies, where are you at? Maybe gentlemen, I don't know. But can we just talk about when you're brown? There are some things that come with being that, okay? The her. Okay, the her. So, your girl, I was blessed, I mean, I had a lot of hair. Yeah, that was a challenge. I actually remember, I think it was in 8th grade. I wore shorts to school and I had only, I wore shorts to school and it wasn't everyone, it was actually this one girl, but I'm sure other people were thinking it. But she literally looked at my legs and she was like she reacted, like she was shocked that there were hair on my legs. And I, being Indian, like being around all of my Indian family and friends, I'm like, sis, what do you mean? I actually didn't say that, but I remember feeling so conscious and thinking like, are girls not supposed to have hair on their legs? And that was like a whole thing. And I remember asking my parents if I could shave or if they could buy me a razor. If you have a foreign dad, we all know how that conversation went. It was no. It was absolutely not. Nope. So that was great, because what I ended up doing was I ended up just stealing like those disposable razors from my family members in the household at the time that were older than me. And I would like secretly shave, and it was just not, I don't know. The razors back in the day, all of that stuff is just not made for our kind of hair, okay? So that was a whole process. But I will say, in 8th grade was the first time that I got my eyebrows threaded, and it hurt like a lot. But I remember being so happy that my eyebrows were threaded because I had a lot of facial hair. I mean, you can't tell now because my eyebrows are done, and like I shave and thread my face, so you can't really tell now. But your girl had a unibrow. She had the whole, there was no shave November. It was like me with the guys. Like, I could have competed with that. There was a lot going on. So I remember when my mom first took me to get threaded, I was so excited. I was literally like, that was like the most looked forward to event that I remember I had in 8th grade. That was just phenomenal. But yeah, being Indian and just being brown and having like a lot of hair, I think is something that, one, we don't talk about. And then two, even if we do talk about it, it's now. But back in the day, like, I went to a predominantly, white school where, all the girls had, like peach fuzz hair. Like, you can't see anything in their arms. It's like clear. And I was not like that. But yeah, I would say that was definitely something that I wasn't conscious of at home until I went to school and girls would make comments, and that's kind of when I was like, but then at the same time, in Indian culture, it's very common to get waxed and threaded, and we don't shave as much. Actually, I don't even think we shave. I don't think my mom's ever put a razor to her body. But I always knew that, like, women are meant to remove their hair, which that's a whole other conversation. But I didn't realize how little non-brown people, if you will, like, think about it. Whereas I thought about it all the time after that. I always thought about, my upper lip, my chin, my eyebrows, my leg hair. Just, it was all that I thought about. So, yeah, so that was definitely interesting. I know we mentioned food. We talked about food a little bit earlier. But, with flavor comes a lot of perks, but also comes some downsides. So, every day at home, I would eat Indian food. I still eat Indian food every single day. It's one of the healthiest diets out there, like super high in veggies, blah, blah, blah. I can get on that later. But yeah, I remember in 6th grade, I went to this middle school where this one guy would literally always say I smell like curry. And I didn't understand that, because if you're brown and you're Indian, you know that curry itself isn't a flavor. When we use the word curry, we use it for gravy. So when we say chicken curry, that means chicken that's in a gravy. Like, it's a curry, it's a sauce. So you wouldn't just call dry chicken or fried chicken curry, if that makes sense. So yeah, I remember when he first called or said that to me, I wasn't even offended because I didn't know what he meant. I was so confused. And obviously I wasn't going to ask like, oh, what do you mean I smell like curry? Could you please elaborate? Nah. But yeah, so I remember in middle school, that was, something that this, guy said to me. And then he got like his friends to say it to me as well. And I didn't understand it, because here I'm thinking that like this was like a hygiene problem. Like, I was showering every day. I played sports. Like, I showered sometimes twice a day. So it was confusing. So yeah, I mean, luckily, and I know, like, not to justify anything, but luckily, like, it was only a small, like a small group of boys that would say that to me. But I remember just being so conscious of it, and because of that, I wouldn't bring Indian food to school anymore, and I would beg my parents to give me lunch money, and then I would literally eat the crappy food at lunch that, at the time I liked. I loved the chocolate milk and the hot Cheetos, or, a hot Cheeto fries or whatever they were called. And yeah, I would like beg my parents. I'm like, Mom or Mama, Papa, like, I don't want Indian food. Like, don't send Indian food. I was so verbal about it too. I'm pretty sure I actually, even yelled at my mom, and I was like, Indian food is so gross. Like, it stinks. Like, why would you give it to me in a tiffin? Tiffin means like lunchbox. Why would you give it to me? And, in hindsight, I don't know, like, that breaks my heart that I would yell at my parents or yell at my family for doing what they've always known, and they're not even doing anything wrong. It's not even like they're doing something that they've always known, but there's a better way. It's like there's no better way. That's just how they do it, and that's just how my school friends or school peers did it. So anyway, back to relating this to first generation. Yeah, so the hair thing was definitely huge. In high school, like that was kind of like the space where I'm like, I want to look cute. I want to look, the way I want to look. And that's kind of when hair became a problem. Like obviously I didn't have, a license as a freshman, a driver's license. So I had to like depend on my parents to take me to get my eyebrows done. And if you have brown parents, we all know we work on their time. They do not work on our time. So my eyebrows, they grow very, very fast. Like they grow to full length in about, well, now it's a little slowed down, but back in the day, literally in a week, like 7-8 days after my eyebrows were done, boom, they were grown, they were luscious, they were just full blown. So obviously my parents, had other things to do, and they're like, you're literally in 9th grade, like relax. I don't understand why you have to always get them done or whatever. So I'd have to wait. And I went to a predominantly a school that didn't I was the only Indian in the whole school, like the whole school. It was something that for myself, again, no one actually said anything. My high school was phenomenal. I had a great high school experience. I went to 2 high schools. Both of them were great. But, it was just something that I wanted for myself. So just maintaining the brows, and I only threaded, maintaining like the upper, like just everything. But I'm so confident. I just wanted my brows to look good for me. Again, it wasn't even because anyone was saying anything in school. I just wanted them done because I liked how they looked when they're done. So I don't know if this is like a challenge or something that I like picked up on, because I wasn't bothered by this at all. I'm actually still not bothered by this. But being in the loop of like pop culture. Okay, now that might sound like, why was that difficult? Like, you're still American, you were still born here in the States, and you obviously went to school, you were surrounded by people that talked about pop culture. But I think one thing that people forget, and again, it's different for everyone, right? Like, this is just my story, this is just my experience. But with me, like at home, okay, yeah, we had TV, but like my family we weren't really big TV watchers. We would watch movies, but we weren't really big TV watchers. A lot of my childhood was spent outside. It was spent, with family friends. It was spent, indoors playing, family visiting us from overseas, us going overseas. So I wasn't really used to necessarily, just, I don't know, like watching TV. And I'm not saying like that's the only way that like you hear about things, or even like the radio. Like I would listen to the radio for sure, channel 955, like that was like, a thing. But even then, like there was only so much time where I had to myself, because I was always around family. I was put in piano lessons, I was put in swimming lessons, I was put in tennis lessons, I was put in singing lessons, all the lessons I was put in a chess club. Like, like I feel like a lot of Indian kids have a very active life because our parents throw us into every club or organization that they can think of. Not just me not being exposed to them, because I could be exposed to them, but I think growing up where majority of the movies that I watched were Bollywood, I feel like I just naturally gravitated to Bollywood movies as opposed to Hollywood movies. Or growing up, the majority of not the majority, because obviously I listen to like music, but I'm just making a point here, but a lot of the music I did listen to was Indian music. So and that's what I just found catchier at the time. Obviously there's one-offs, but my interest just gravitated to a lot of Indian interests, if that even makes sense. But so I wasn't even keeping up. So yeah, that was just like a side note. There's no like there's no like good or bad in that. That's just more of something that I've noticed. Okay, so another thing where, again, I'm not sure if it's a perk or not a perk, I was super indifferent to it, was the amount actually I'm very thankful for it, the amount of things that my parents put me in. Like, your girl was in piano, singing classes, drama classes, like book clubs, tennis, volleyball. after school like gym workout. I don't even know, not workout, but it was like after school like exercise activities. I was part of a choir. I was part of a dance group. I was part of a chess club, like I mentioned earlier. Like I was part of so many things. I was not a part of Kumon, contrary to popular belief, because you could not persuade me anyway to get tutored after school. Like I was pretty smart in school. I did fairly well, but to think that like after school I would go like and learn math, like that was just not like, my parents were like, yeah, we're not going to do that. I definitely have a more artistic side, a more non-math side. So my dad was very intentional in putting me in various different things so that I could figure out for myself like what I liked. And obviously I gravitated to sports, and I gravitated to a lot of, I don't know what the category is, but like debate teams, model United Nations, like things like that. So yeah, so that was pretty cool. And I feel like that might not just be an Indian thing, but I noticed that with a lot of my Indian friends, Indian family friends, a lot of us had a very similar story in the sense that we were all put into like a billion things. Except I feel like they were maybe put into the Kumans and stuff. I wasn't. And yeah, and I think that really did shape me and help me, meet so many people and gain perspective at such a young age, as opposed to just going to school, daycare, coming back. Like, no. Ooh, that's a good one, actually. Talking about growing up and having a babysitter. How many of you guys have had a babysitter before? Put it in the comments below. So I have had babysitters growing up, but I will say that was like worst case scenario. If push came to shove, my parents were huge on, making sure that my grandparents or a family member was the one caring for me or looking after me if it wasn't them. So, excuse me. So that was huge. I basically was raised by my grandparents, along with my parents, but every day after school, like from elementary school to high school, everyone, I would come home to my grandparents 6 months out of the year, because they flew in from India. But yeah, 6 months out of the year I would come home to my grandparents, and then of the 6 months that they weren't in the States, I was going to visit them from anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. So literally like almost 7 months out of the year, up until I was 18, I was with my grandparents. So yeah, I think that's I'm sure that that's a common thing across all cultures, but again, this is just my thing. But I think that I really appreciated that, because there is something so huge in a gap of generations. So I feel like our parents' generation and our generation, there's a lot of like, we have to teach you what to do so that you can navigate the world, and we're like, we have to do it our way so we can navigate the world on our own. And then there's grandparents, where they're not here to like teach us a lesson directly. They end up doing it as like a side effect, but they're here to just enjoy us and really bring out the best versions of us. I remember I was the most happiest. Sorry, mom and dad, but I was definitely one of the most happiest when I was around my grandfather. He was just someone that, first of all, he was a really cool guy, super cool guy. But then he was just like so interested in my life. Like, what did you do in school today? But like actually care. And, tell me about your friends. And it wasn't even like he was just asking me questions, but we would talk as friends, So I think that was a huge perk in being, again, first generation. This could be for other cultures, but, being first generation and being super close to family, and especially the older generation, and the amount of respect that we put on that generation, and the amount of responsibility that we give to that generation to really influence the kids, and not just like, oh, you're old, like, all right, like, we're done with you, like, you can just, no, like, they still drive decisions. They're still the head of the household. Yeah, my grandfather like was the head of the household. He overrode my dad any day. Like, he was the man. And I think that's something that I really respect about, the way I was raised, and my culture in general, is the amount of importance that we give to people who are older than us. I think it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And there's so many great benefits to doing that, you know. Quick side note, I'll probably have to make another video on blue zones, but you know, studies have literally shown that when you have multiple generations living in a household, you know, the life expectancy of that household is generally longer. You know, the signs of depression, anxiety are generally lower. There's just a bunch of things. But yeah, so that was a great time. Non-stop texts from your mom. Can we talk about this? This is something I need to talk about with you guys, because if you are in any way related to someone like me, first generation, brown, Middle Eastern, you all know you cannot ignore your mom's phone call or text. That is just a huge no-no. And at that point, you might as well just pack your bags and move out of the house, because that's the equivalency of not responding to your mother's text, phone calls, or messages. Now, this is something none of my other friends dealt with that weren't Desi. But when I got a phone call or a text from my mom, and I'm like, oh, let me just respond to this text, or let me call her, let me pick up this call, it would be like, oh, just like call her later, or pick up later. Susan, do you understand that there's no later as an option? So yeah, so that was it wasn't a challenge. I mean, I always pick up my parents' calls. Now I don't. Now if I'm mad, I got a car, honey. So if I'm mad, I don't pick up, and then to protect myself from getting, you know, decapitated at home, I just drive away until my mother cools off. But yeah, I would say that's something that I definitely noticed is, you know, answering your parents' text messages and calls, especially when you move to college. So this is where I was going with this. How many of you all get asked twice a day, 3 times a day, if you've eaten food? I know I can't hear you guys, but comment down below. How many of you all get bombarded with text messages about food? Now, I will say now, I think this is the best thing ever. I think it's such a blessing to have parents that care if you've eaten. And I know that sounds so crazy to some of us, because it's like, duh, why wouldn't they care? But a lot of people, you know, don't have that privilege of having, you know, someone who asks them about the little things in life or checks up on them. So this is definitely a privilege and a blessing that I hold really, really close to my heart, that I have something like this to even talk about. But yeah, on a non-senti note, our parents do not care where we are. If we are meeting with the president of the US of A, they don't care. They will still blow up our phones and expect us to pick up, respond, whatever. Okay, this one I found really funny. I just thought of this. But who out here has ever tried to threaten their parents, especially their foreign moms? In school, I would hear so much about kids like talking back to their parents or whatever. Mind you, I obviously talked back to my parents. I still do. Like, we argue, we have fun, we laugh. It's not like that. I remember when I must have been in 3rd or 4th grade, and I don't even remember what I was asking for, but I literally told my mom, Mom, if you don't do this, I'll call the cops and tell them that you didn't buy me this chocolate or whatever. You know what my mom said? She didn't even say anything. She walked to the other room, grabbed the landline. Yes, we had a landline. Grabbed it and put it in my hand. And she goes, call. Y'all, there is nothing scarier than your mother putting a phone in your hand and saying, call the cops. I dare you, with her eyes. With her eyes. Never try that again. So I really hope that you liked this video, and I hope that there was something that you could relate to, or if not, that you learned, you know, something new. These are the things I like to talk about, and yeah, that was just a topic that popped into my head. And the weather was really nice outside, so I'm like, you know, let's get some vitamin D as well as talk to all of you. So I hope you have an amazing day, an even better week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy. I will talk to you all later. Bye.